And I'm joined first by Tim Barnes, Conservative candidate for Cities of London and Westminster. Good morning to you, Tim. Lovely to see you this Bank Holiday Monday.
Good morning, Matthew, and I'm sorry you haven't been feeling very well.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Tell us where you are personally, because there are a range of opinions within the Conservative Party now about what the election... I mean, I should say that the idea of a hung parliament, that poll is based only on the voting habits of people in local elections, which almost every other pundit would accept isn't how general elections work. So it's a slim thread to cling on, a hung parliament, I would suggest.
Actually, I think that's reasonably fair. What I would say is what we know, and it is a cliche that the only poll that really matters is the one on election day. But what we know is that the results weren't what was predicted by the models even 48 hours before the election took place, nationally or individually in some of the big cities. So the idea that anything is necessarily certain at this stage, I definitely reject that. You go out, you knock on doors, and you don't have the same experiences that the pollsters and the doomsayers were talking about last week. So I do think that there is a huge amount to play for. I make no sort of cover up of the idea that this is a bad place to be in and there is a huge task to be done. But I do think that there is plenty of progress that can be made. And if you listen to some of the people you've already quoted this morning, Tobias Ellwood and perhaps Andy Street, who are there talking about how we engage with people who aren't really sure what they want to do at the moment, who are not necessarily convinced by Keir Starmer's Labour Party. You quoted Suella Braverman from some of her Laura Kunsberg comments yesterday. But actually, the other thing that she said was, Keir Starmer has the charisma of a peanut, arguably the most memorable line of the Sunday morning political programmes. And that's the issue. The issue is that when you go and talk to people, they don't like a lot of what's happening in the world, but they also don't see a solution to run to.
Is that an issue, slagging off the leader of the opposition? Is that smart politics? Is Suella Braverman, in that interview, all she offered voters, to my ears, was exactly the same things that we've heard for the last 2 years, which have just been overwhelmingly rejected, albeit at a local council level. You can't draw direct comparisons, but it was a hefty rejection for the Conservative Party by and large. Why would you carry on going down the same furrow? Why not explore different things that maybe the public may engage with? I mean, what one policy would you think, anything at all, what one policy could galvanise support for the Conservative Party again?
You all ended with a question, but you threw a couple of things in along the way that I just want to push back.
By all means, Tim.
The first is the idea that it's an overwhelming loss. Lots of these losses have come with relatively small swings, single-digit percentage points.
True.
Even, in the case of Andy Street, 1,500 votes out of 3 million that determined it. I'd actually say that in the backdrop, against the backdrop of everything else that's happening nationally, that's actually really, not so bad. It shows that if you have a positive message about what you can do, there are still millions of people who want to turn to the Conservatives as the people to deliver that. And that's really my answer to your...
What's the positive message? Give me something positive. Come on, give me something positive.
Well, actually, it's saying that the messages should be positive. I agree with some of what you were saying, that there's been too much of the anti-rhetoric, anti-this, anti-that, anti-the other, and too much, really, of basically criticising the other side and not saying these are the things that we need to do.
Is there one policy, Tim?
I don't think is actually... No, because I don't think this is about silver bullets. If this was something that we could have magically come up with, which was a single policy, could have gone out in a single tweet and 140 characters, that would be done. That would have been done already. In fact, the other side, Labour or others would have done it and would have all had this sealed up. It isn't like that. What it is about concentrating on talking about genuinely delivering things that people really care about. And one of the tricks of that, and one of the reasons for that it's complicated, is it differs so much in differing parts of the country. We talked about immigration not being an issue in London for, a decade or more. So the London issues here, when you go and knock on doors, as I've been doing throughout 2024 in the build up to these elections, nobody's really talking about that. That's not a
apart from Susan Hall, the Conservative Party candidate who called London Londonistan.
Yeah, and I think that there's probably something of the past in that. There's a politician who's been around for a long time, and a lot of those views have been formed. There were other parts of that you don't find in central London, where I am, in two cities, where nobody was really talking to me about ULEZ before, but I know from the Uxbridge by-election it was a major issue. So these things are critical. I would like to see us concentrate more on the cost of living crisis, that everyday finances, crime, which is something where whatever you see with the figures, the sense of fear that people have is very real. And a bit like immigration, it's as much about getting confidence back as it is about the underlying figures.
Tim, very positive conversation. I like hearing positivity. I think that is the direction to go. And it's interesting, even though you didn't feel there was one silver bullet, magic bullet policy, the cost of living crisis was the first policy that you mentioned that I'm not hearing from Westminster. And that is the one that the polls say that people are most concerned about. Lovely conversation. Thank you.